All great journeys begin with a strange decision. And few are stranger than that of an aging gentleman from La Mancha, who decides, one morning, to become a knight-errant. Not in the days of chivalry, when armor gleamed and castles stood proud, but in a Spain where such days have long since faded into folklore. We meet Alonso Quixano, a man so consumed by stories of gallant knights and noble quests that the line between fiction and reality blurs beyond recognition. Taking up the name Don Quixote de la Mancha, he dons rusty armor, mounts a bony old horse. He grandly names Rocinante, and sets forth into a world that has no place for him, determined to bring back honor, justice, and romance to an age that has moved on. It is in this gap between belief and reality that the comedy and the tragedy of Don Quixote takes its life. What begins as a series of absurd misadventures quickly reveals something deeper. His most famous battle, tilting at Windmills, he mistakes for giants, is not merely slapstick. It is a perfect image of the human tendency to fight imagined threats, to read meaning into the meaningless, and to chase ideals the world no longer recognizes. By his side is Sancho Panza, his earthy, practical squire, a man whose loyalty often baffles even himself. With his appetite for food, sleep, and small comforts, Sancho stands in stark contrast to Quixote's lofty, delirious ideals. Together, they form a pair whose conversations, bickering, and shared trials give the narrative both its humor and its philosophical pulse. Cervantes layers his Spain with dry plains, sleepy villages, bustling inns, settings that, in Quixote's eyes, transform into enchanted castles, courts of kings, or cursed lands. The innkeeper becomes a noble lord, bestowing knighthood. A group of merchants, on the road, is a band of dangerous knights who must proclaim the beauty of his imagined lady, Dulcinea del Toboso. And each time, the world refuses to conform to his vision. The blows he receives fall as much upon his body as they do on the fragile bridge between his faith and the ordinary reality around him. Yet beneath the comedy lies a quieter, more moving question. Is Don Quixote mad? Or is he simply too brave to accept the barrenness of a world stripped of chivalry? In a society weighed down by pragmatism and routine, one man dares to live according to the ideals of courage, honor, and devotion to an unattainable love. Cervantes refuses to give us an easy answer. The villagers laugh at him. His priest and barber try to cure him by burning his books. But as readers, we can't help feeling that the true madness might belong to those who cannot see the world as anything more than it is. Sancho's evolution mirrors our own. As we read, at first, he follows Quixote for promises of wealth and governorship, amused by his master's wild imaginings. But over time, even Sancho begins to half-believe in Dulcinea, to blur the borders between fact and fancy. And in this way, Cervantes shows how imagination is contagious, how stories seep into our bones, shaping not only the way we see the world, but the way we choose to live within it. The novel's structure, 2 volumes, published 10 years apart, gives it a layered self-awareness. In the second part, characters have read The Adventures of Don Quixote from the first volume, and their reactions play into how they treat him. This metafictional twist is centuries ahead of its time. A sly nudge from Cervantes, reminding us that literature and life feed into each other endlessly, and that the line between them is as flimsy as a page. By the time Quixote's adventures draw to a close, something remarkable has happened. The world has not changed. Windmills still stand, motionless. Dulcinea remains an imagined idol. But we, the readers, have. What began as the tale of a ridiculous old man reveals itself as a meditation on human dignity, the necessity of dreams, and the bittersweet cost of living for ideals that the world no longer shares. When Don Quixote finally lays down his arms and regains his sanity, it feels less like a cure and more like a surrender. And the laughter that followed his misadventures fades into an ache. Cervantes wrote Don Quixote partly as a satire of the old chivalric romances. But in doing so, he created something that outgrew its original target. It became one of the first great modern novels, rich with irony, comedy, and tenderness. Its enduring power lies in how it allows us to laugh at Quixote's folly, while also recognizing, in it, a mirror of our own impossible hopes. For centuries later, the figure of the knight-errant tilting at windmills still speaks to anyone who has dared to fight for something invisible, intangible, and perhaps unreachable. Because sometimes, to live fully, you need to believe in giants, even when everyone else can see only windmills.